When I was young, I thought life was about adding things, adding goals, adding responsibilities. But the older I got, and especially as I neared retirement, I realized something far more powerful. True freedom begins with subtraction. Not more stuff, but less. Not more weight, but lightness. Not more obligations, but more space to breathe. I once visited an elderly woman with my father, a pastor. She lived in a house where every room was filled floor to ceiling with stuff. Boxes, newspapers, keepsakes, furniture that no one used. It wasn't messy, it was full. So full that even air felt crowded. Years later, she moved into a small care home. Her room was sparse, clean, peaceful. I asked her gently, "Do you miss all your stuff?" She smiled and said, "Some days, but most days I just feel free." That line has stayed with me for decades. Because of retirement, if you do it right, it isn't just an end, it's a reset. A rare moment to ask yourself, what do I want to carry forward and what am I ready to release? So today, we're not talking about what to buy before retirement. We're talking about what to sell or let go of to reclaim your peace. And if you're a man who's been building his whole life, this might be the most important question you've asked yet. 1. Sell the house that's too big for the life you live. There's a certain pride in home ownership, especially when it's the house you worked your whole life to afford. The dream home. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a 2-car garage, maybe 3. A backyard you mowed every Saturday, even when your knees hurt. It's the house where the kids grew up, where the holidays happened, where the pictures still hang, even though the people in them live somewhere else now. But here's what no one tells you. A house doesn't always grow with you. Sometimes it grows past you. The kids moved out. The guest room turned into storage. The second living room? Mostly silence. And the upstairs? You haven't climbed those stairs in weeks, maybe months. And slowly, the house that once held noise and purpose starts to echo with emptiness and expense. Because here's the truth. What was once a symbol of arrival can quietly become a burden you carry long after the party ends. The walls still stand, but now they whisper bills, maintenance, leaky faucets, creaking floorboards, a roof that needs replacing, property taxes that creep up year after year. What used to feel like home now feels like work. So let me say this plainly. Selling your too big house isn't about shrinking. It's not about giving up or giving in. It's about choosing freedom over familiarity. It's about trading unused space for uncluttered peace. It's about letting your life match your actual needs, not your old ones. Lower bills, less to clean, fewer things to fix, and in many cases access to the home equity you've quietly built for decades. I've watched men turn that equity into something beautiful, travel with their spouse, a gift to help their children buy their own first home, a simple house in the countryside, surrounded by trees instead of traffic, or just breathing room. But you know what the real value is? It's not in the money, it's in the shift. Because selling that house is often the first real permission a man gives himself to stop living for everyone else's dreams and start living for his own peace. Now, to be clear, not every man needs to sell. Some homes still feel alive, still feel right, still give more than they take. But don't let sentiment become shackles. Ask yourself honestly, is this place still serving me? Or am I just serving it? Because there's a big difference between being homeowner proud and being homeowner trapped. I've spoken to countless men who stayed in the house out of loyalty, only to realize they were loyal to a version of life that no longer existed. And when they finally let go, when they sold, downsized, simplified, the emotion that surprised them most wasn't grief. It was relief. Because peace doesn't live in square footage. It lives in the spaces that let you rest. It lives in homes that feel just right, not just big. And sometimes, the bravest thing a man can do at 60 is to stop maintaining a life he no longer lives. 2. Sell the second car that sits more than it drives. There was a time when having 2 cars felt like a necessity, not a luxury, a requirement. One for you, one for your spouse, sometimes even a third for the kids, for emergencies, for just in case. Back then, it made perfect sense. Work, commutes, soccer practice, errands running in every direction. The driveway always had movement, engine starting, doors slamming, someone always coming or going. But now, the second car mostly sits, parked for days, sometimes weeks, gathering dust, losing value. It's not that you don't like having it. It's that you barely need it anymore. You're not rushing to an office. You're not driving the kids to school. And if we're honest, you've learned to enjoy the stillness more than the schedule. So here's a hard but honest question. Is that second car still serving your life? Or just sitting in it? Because every car, no matter how rarely it moves, costs you insurance, registration, oil changes, unexpected repairs, a dead battery here, a flat tire there. Even if you don't notice the money going out, it adds up. And in retirement, every dollar saved is a dollar of freedom bought. Now, this isn't about getting rid of what you love. If your second car brings you joy, keep it. Maybe it's your weekend cruiser. Maybe it's your project car. Maybe it's the vehicle you take out when the sun is just right and the road is just open. That's different. But if it's the car you might need, but almost never do, then maybe it's time to reconsider. Because you're not just keeping a car, you're keeping responsibility. Every year you keep it, just in case, is a year you could have used that money and mental space for something better. Travel, health, gifting, saving, or maybe just not having to think about another thing in the garage. I once spoke to a man who sold his second car and used the money to book a 2-month train trip across Europe with his wife. He told me, I traded steel for stories, and I don't miss the car at all. Oh, because here's the deeper truth. We often hold on to things not because we need them, but because they've been there, familiar, part of the structure. Like furniture we forgot we could move. But retirement is the perfect time to reset the structure, to ask, what's essential now? Not 5 years ago, not 20. Now? And in that clarity, you may realize that letting go of a vehicle doesn't mean you're giving up freedom. It may mean you're finally living it, because freedom isn't how many keys you carry. It's how many burdens you don't. 3. Sell the investments that cost too much and complicate your life. Not all burdens are heavy. Some come in fine print. Some show up every March in the form of a 37-page tax document you barely understand. And some sit quietly inside your retirement portfolio, costing you money, time, and clarity. Let me explain. When you were younger, complexity sounded smart. Diversification, high-yield strategies, exotic-sounding products with long names and promises of long-term growth. You nodded politely while your advisor explained the variable this and the index linked that. Maybe you didn't fully understand, but you trusted. You were building, and building required layers. But now, it's not about building. It's about protecting, simplifying, knowing where your money is and why. Because here's the uncomfortable truth most people discover too late. Not every investment serves you equally. Some serve the person who sold them to you far more than they serve you. That whole life insurance policy with sky-high premiums, that annuity with layers of fees and restrictions, that mutual fund charging over 1% annually, even when it underperforms the market. They might have sounded great 20 years ago, but today they might be eating into your freedom. And worse than the fees is the mental fog. I've seen men with 5 brokerage accounts, 6 IRAs, and a shoebox full of statements, each with different logins, different objectives, different levels of risk. Managing their retirement became a part-time job. Here's the question you have to ask. Do I own this investment? Or does it own my attention? Because peace in retirement doesn't just come from how much you have. It comes from how simply you can access it and how clearly you understand it. A man once told me, I didn't retire to become my own financial administrator. So he sold what wasn't working, consolidated what was, moved into simple, low-cost index funds he could understand in one glance. He said it felt like clearing out a junk drawer, except the drawer was his life savings. I'm not telling you to sell everything. Some complex products do serve a purpose. Some annuities provide stability. Some diversification is smart. But be honest, if you couldn't explain what an account is for, what it costs you, or how it helps you sleep better at night, why are you still holding on to it? Every investment should earn its place, not just in your portfolio, but in your peace of mind. And if it doesn't, let it go. Because complexity that no longer serves your goals isn't a strategy, it's a distraction. And in this chapter of life, your attention is your most precious currency. Spend it where it counts. On family, on joy, on rest. Not on trying to decode your finances at 2 a.m. Simplify, streamline, unclutter your accounts, the same way you unclutter your closet or your garage. And remember, a strong portfolio isn't about how much it impresses, it's about how well it supports the life you actually want to live. 4. Sell the toys you don't touch anymore. We all buy toys at some point. Not the kind made of plastic and batteries, but the adult version. The RV, the boat, the motorcycle, the jet ski, the golf simulator in the garage you swore you'd use every weekend. And at one point, you probably did. Those toys brought joy. They were symbols of freedom, of reward, of, I've made it. But then something shifted. Maybe it was age. Maybe it was changing priorities. Maybe it was just time. And slowly, those toys became still. The RV hasn't left the driveway in 2 summers. The boat's covered in a tarp that's more weathered than the deck. The motorcycle sits in the corner, tires low, battery dead. You tell yourself, next season, when things calm down, maybe when I finally retire. But if you're honest, you're not going to use them like you used to. And that's not failure. It's evolution. Because we don't just outgrow clothes. We outgrow experiences, désir, versions of ourselves. And holding on to the past, just because it once made you happy, is like keeping party decorations up long after the guests have gone home. Worse, these toys aren't just taking up physical space, they take up mental space too. You walk past them and feel guilt, responsibility, regret. Another thing to fix, another task on the to-do list, another someday weighing on your today. Letting go of them, selling them, isn't about getting rid of memories. It's about releasing expectations you no longer need to meet. The truth is, those toys cost more than money. They cost time, energy, storage, maintenance, and a little piece of peace every time you see them and think, I should be enjoying that. But maybe you already did. Maybe that season is complete, and maybe the smartest thing you can do is trade steel and horsepower for simplicity and presence. A man I once knew sold his fishing boat, the one he hadn't used in 5 years, and used the proceeds to fly his grandson across the country for a week together. He told me, that trip caught more joy than that boat ever did, because freedom isn't about how many toys you own. It's about how little you have to maintain to feel alive. If a toy still lights you up, keep it. But if it's just a symbol of youth, or success, or someday, maybe it's time to let it go. You're not erasing the past. You're just clearing space for what matters now. Because in this chapter of life, your best memories won't come from the engine rumbling, but from the stillness that lets you finally exhale. 5. Sell the side hustle that became a full-time stressor. There was a time when the idea of a side hustle sounded smart. Something on the side, something flexible, something you could grow at your pace outside the 9-to-5 grind. Maybe it started as a rental property, or a small business, a hobby turned income, a little shop, a consulting gig, a website. At first, it felt exciting, empowering, even fun. But over time, what was supposed to be side income became a full-time obligation. Late-night emails, tenant complet, inventory orders, tax headaches, unexpected repairs, just a few hours a week, turning into entire weekends lost. And now, you're altmish, maybe retired, but still waking up to problems that don't serve your peace. Here's the hard truth no one likes to admit. What once gave you freedom may now be taking it from you. Let me be clear. This isn't about quitting just because something's hard. Hard things build character, but some things were meant for a season, not for a lifetime. A man I knew ran a small woodworking business from his garage. It started as therapy, something he loved. Then it grew. Orders came in. Clients called. Expectations rose. One day he looked up and realized he hadn't made something for himself in 5 years. He wasn't crafting anymore. He was managing. So he sold the tools, closed the books, and gave away his last custom table to his daughter. He told me, I didn't sell a business. I reclaimed my weekends. Because here's the thing. If your side hustle is draining your health, your energy, your relationships, it's not a side hustle. It's a silent thief. It's stealing the very life you worked decades to enjoy. And yes, selling a business, a rental property, or a passion project is emotional. You built it. It mattered. It carried your name. But you're not giving up. You're choosing alignment. And alignment is this. Does what I carry still serve the man I've become? If the answer is yes, keep it. Build it. Pass it on. But if the answer is no, if it feels more like a weight than a joy, you have the right to let go. You don't need to prove your work ethic anymore. You've already done the long hours. You've already earned your place. Now, you earn your peace. Sell the project. Transition the business. Free yourself from the phone calls, the back end, the bookkeeping. Because time isn't a renewable resource. And the older we get, the more valuable presence becomes than productivity. And if that sounds like surrender, it's not. It's wisdom. And wisdom is knowing when to fight and when to rest. So if that side hustle you once loved now feels like a second job, ask yourself, what am I really holding on to? And what would I gain if I let it go? Because in this chapter, less stress isn't laziness. It's luxury. And you've earned it. Too often, we think selling means losing. Losing comfort, losing history, losing control. But what if selling is gaining? Gaining space, gaining peace, gaining alignment with who you are now. Retirement is not an end. It's a gate. And you can't walk through it holding everything you've ever owned, committed to, or believed you needed. So sell the house that weighs you down. Sell the car that doesn't move. Sell the investments that confuse you. Sell the toys you don't touch. Sell the stress you no longer need to carry, not because it's easy, but because it's wise, and because peace doesn't come from more. It comes from less, on purpose,